Hi, my name is Commander Emily Thakur with the drug shortage staff at CDER. I'm here today to discuss drug shortages, root causes, and potential solutions. The mission of the drug shortage staff is to prevent, mitigate, and alleviate drug shortages. Providing access to life-saving medications is our #1 priority. Our staff works across the board within the agency as well as outside of the agency with other professional organizations, patient groups. Our main stakeholder, however, is industry. Our staff began back in 1999, and we've grown over the years. We've also grown in the authorities provided to us by Congress. In 2012, requirements were made to industry to provide early notification to the FDA for any potential shortages or interruption in supply to the market. Our staff is designated to oversee those situations that lead to shortage or can lead to shortage and attempt to facilitate the resolution of those or prevent them at all from occurring. We want to make sure that safe and effective drugs are available to patients. So sometimes we need to handle long and short-term strategies to get that product to patients. What we want to do is minimize the risk to patients from any given product. So we want to make sure there's product available for patients, but with the least amount of risk to them. We try and keep everyone as up to date on what we're doing with these products by providing up-to-date daily postings to our website. So companies give us information and we post them to our website as soon as we have them. As I said earlier, our staff works with many different groups. So we have our patients and providers sometimes giving us information about shortages. We work with international authorities who also have shortage situations. We work with outside agencies, but our main contact are the manufacturers. We're working with them day in, day out to address shortages, to work on shortages, make sure that anything that could potentially occur, if we can help, if the FDA can help prevent it, that we're doing what we can. This is the notification requirement that they have to comply with as of 2012. So they need to let the FDA know of any permanent discontinuance in manufacturing or an interruption of manufacturing that could lead to a disruption in supply. They're supposed to let us know 6 months in advance. That's not always the case. That's not always a possibility. But if they can let us know as soon as possible of an interruption before it's to occur, that just gives us time to assist in any way we can. The more advanced notice we have, the better shot that we might be able to prevent a shortage from even occurring. Now, their notification requirement is not limited to medically necessary products. It's a term that I'm sure you hear. We want to hear about any shortage. That's not for the company to decide. We'll decide internally with our clinicians if a product is medically necessary. But we'll work on any shortage. We may prioritize those, but we work on all shortages. And we want to know about these shortages no matter what the market share of a company is. They may think that, oh, the shortage doesn't mean much. We're only 10% of the market. But they don't know if there are other manufacturers of the same product having issues. So that small amount might be compounded based on other scenarios going on that they're not aware of. So for us, we want to hear about it no matter what they think of the need of the product and what they think of the market share of the product. We'll figure that out internally. So a drug shortage is defined as the period of time when the demand or the projected demand of the drug is exceeding the supply of the drug. And then medically necessary, that is a product that is used to treat or prevent a serious disease or medical condition for which there is no alternative drug available in adequate supply. That's judged by a medical staff to be of adequate substitute. So something might not be medically necessary because there's an alternative product that could cover for that therapeutic need. However, it might be in very small supply. So it could not necessarily, even if the one product didn't exist, the other product would not be able to cover the breadth of those two products. So those are things that we judge internally. So they need to report to us these types of information about how they're impacting supply. Is it a change in manufacturing, whether they're doing upgrades, they're having issues manufacturing, maybe they can't procure product, or are they actually having issues like particulate issues, sterility issues? And all of these need to be reported, not just on the product as a whole. We want to know the drugs, the specific dosage form strength, rate of administration. All of that can make a difference in terms of what efforts we need to do on our end to assist. And that's also why we need to know as soon as we can about them. Even if for us, we'd rather know, say they can't even fill an order, so that the potential for what may come down the line. Just because they provide us information does not mean we necessarily act upon it, does not mean that we're going to post it on our website. And I think that's something that people have concerns about sometimes. So we have this information, we hold on to this information. We may do like a initial search, make sure there's other companies out there and that we're not hearing about other things with this product, but that doesn't mean we're going to necessarily go run with the information. So it's still better for us to hear it earlier than later. So this is how we see our drug supply chain. We have the supplier. These are the pieces that we have some control over. We know from the supplier to the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the pharmacy level to the end, the patient care provider. We know about the manufacturer because we have direct contact with them, as well as we can see on systems that we purchase kind of what the market share is for the different companies that are providing product to the marketplace. This we get sometimes if we ask for it. The wholesaler is not required to provide us information, but if we need it or if that's helpful, we may get that from them as well. What we do see, and this is that market share data about the manufacturers, we see what's going out to the hospitals. We don't see the hospital inventory or where they're having shortfalls, but we hear about it on the back end when they email us and say they're missing something. We never want to get to the point where we're hearing from the pharmacy or we're hearing from the patients and the providers. If we're hearing from the pharmacies and hospitals and the patients and providers, then it's too late. We should have heard back at the manufacturing level. The FDA will closely work with manufacturers to address problems. We'll try and assist. We try and expedite reviews of applications, inspections, anything that's in our control. So what we can is ask them to notify us about supply disruptions, delays, discontinuations, changes in manufacturing. Those are things that they're required. The manufacturers are required to share with us. However, we cannot require a company to make a drug. We cannot require them to make more of a drug. And we can't tell them where to send the drug. Some companies have contracts with certain hospitals. If they make product and they say they can make it for their customers, and that's what they're going to make it for. So we can ask them if they can go outside of that, but sometimes their hands are tied. So I keep going back to this, but I'm stressing early notification is key. We will prioritize those that are medically necessary. However, we do work on all shortages. Main thing is the risk benefit of the drug in question. We want to keep product to patients, but if it is riskier for that product to go to them, then we're not going to provide it. If we can somehow mitigate that risk or put measures in place that will limit the risk to patients, then we want the patients to have product. And of course, not every shortage can be prevented. There's always going to be natural disasters. There are always going to be increases in demand that a manufacturer can't account for, and they don't have the capacity to ramp up quickly enough to assist. So, and then also if they're having problems that are so great, sometimes they can't make the fixes that are required and still manufacture a product. So it's not always going to be something where we can prevent a shortage. So this is part of our toolbox. Number one is communication. We need to keep the lines of communication open, not just with the public, but with the company. They need to let us know what's going on. The more information we know from them on the issues they're having, the more we can relay. We're not giving commercial confidential information out to other people, but if we can, best guesstimate maybe how long we're going to have a shortfall in the market, I think that still helps better guide other manufacturers on timing or what they may need to increase their demand or capacity for, look for capacity for. It makes a big difference if they know that a shortage is maybe going to last a month versus last 6 months or more. So that helps us to help the other companies try and figure out supply demand. But internally, like I said, expediting reviews of applications or supplements, as well as inspections, expediting inspections, although tough right now, just given this situation, this COVID scenario. But what we do is provide regulatory discretion. We're able to allow product to be on the market that may not normally be on the market if we weren't in this shortage scenario. So say there are concerns with a product. Maybe by using a filter with an injectable product, we'd be able to provide that product safely to patients. Say manufacturer has data that can extend the expiry of a product. That may be something that we could provide that would then, at least the product that's on the market, in case they can't make more, the product on the market can be left in the market, a few months longer. Sometimes that's good enough to help. May not prevent a shortage long term, but at least short term, we might be able to keep product in the market longer. Sometimes if there's a problem with the facility, if there's third-party oversight, maybe that will allow us, give the agency comfortability to have that company keep manufacturing product and releasing product to patients that we wouldn't otherwise. So as I was saying, expedited review is part of the toolbox, and sometimes it's for new manufacturing sites, a change of raw material, container closures, sometimes it's spec changes. But these are all things that we're willing to look at, and sometimes these are things that we can expedite, or if it's something that we cannot expedite, maybe it's something that we can provide regulatory discretion. We have enough information, maybe we can't approve something, but we can allow product to be released. Rare cases, what we do, and we don't want to if we don't have to, but sometimes we may need to import products that are from ex-US sources. So products that are not approved here in the US, but are approved and being used overseas. So those are what we do. We still get a lot of information from the company. We still get a lot of information from the foreign or ex-US foreign inspector or counterparts at, say, Health Canada, TGA, EMA, on the inspectional history of those sites where we're bringing product in. So we'll still do our due diligence to make sure that product is safe and effective for patients, which is why we're looking for a product that's been approved elsewhere and been used in other patients. And we've had some successes in those imported products becoming FDA approved products for continued US use. So this chart shows some of the impact of early notification to the FDA. So the more we know over the years, the more those notifications have helped us to prevent shortages from occurring. So not every one of these would have necessarily gone into shortage, but we've made strides enough and have made either other companies aware. We've taken measures that have been able to keep these products from going into shortage. And we've had a good decrease in new shortages over the years as well due to those notifications. So that's been, 2011 was the peak at 251, and we've slowly decreased over time. There have been ebbs and flows. We've had some large company closures that had kind of increased some of the shortages that we've had. We've had the hurricane back in 2017 that impacted a lot of products coming out of Puerto Rico. We've had, now with the pandemic, we've had increase in supplies for several drugs, and some were ones that were already in shortage. So that can impact other shortages too, as companies prioritize what products are made and what we need in the marketplace. So here's just a few examples of some shortages that we've dealt with. Valsartan, although I think that's coming out of shortage now, we had some short supply issues, and that was with the detection of nitrosamine impurities. We had dealt with that. Dexmedetomidine injection had a huge increase in demand, and we believe that was partly due with pandemic activities, COVID activities, need in the ERs and ICUs. One that's a long-standing shortage, Erwinaze, has been in and out of shortage for years. But in general, some of the shortages that we've had injectable shortages, a lot of ones due to emergency syringes. And those are ones that you've seen and can see on our website that we have been able to bring in and out of shortage due to expiry extension. So sometimes that's actually been able to assist with keeping product on the market and then not allowing that shortage to be as widely felt. They may not be able to buy new product. However, they've been able to keep the product that they have for a little bit longer. Epinephrine had been one that was in and out of shortage as well. And same thing, just an example, like tacrolimus, it's still available, but it's not available from all suppliers. So that's something also that you might see on our website, is that sometimes something is still on there. You can get product, but it might not be fully available from all manufacturers that you would have normally gotten it from before. Who we rely on most. is industry. We need industry's help to prevent and mitigate these shortages. They're the only ones that truly understand the frailties of their supply chain, understand where things can go wrong, and to watch them. Some companies have many products, and it's hard to see, on a given day where one might have a hiccup and could lead to something down the line. But some don't have as many, and they still may not be watching their supply chain as closely as they could. But again, they need to communicate as early as possible about potential shortages. Shortage information that we do end up posting on our website when shortage is actually in play, that information is vetted by the company. We do not just put something up there on our own. Whether the company mocks it up for us or we do, we will vet it with the company before we post it on the website. We only post on the website once that we know that that shortage is unavoidable. We're not going to put something up there if one company is out, but 3 others can cover the market share. That's a regional shortage. That's maybe there's a wholesaler issue, inventory issue. We wouldn't post for that. If it's a nationwide shortage and we know that it's being felt out there, that's when we're going to post it. The rationale behind that as well is that we don't want to create a hoarding situation. If they see it on our website, if someone can get it, they're going to purchase it, which is only going to worsen the shortage. So we don't post unless we know we need to post. And then we need to work with industry, and we need them to provide us short-term and long-term plans. That's for them to come up with, and for us to concur, review, and see if that's a good strategy. We want to make sure that a highest quality product is getting out to patients. But the more they work with us, the more we're able to minimize those shutdowns and slowdowns that always end up leading to shortages. So what we are going to continue to look at are continued solutions, and that we hope will have more lasting impact. So a FDA task force was stood up to identify additional stakeholders too outside of the agency that might be able to help play a part in us trying to get into this shortage, a bigger shortage fix. So we engaged folks at CMS, we engaged folks at the VA, different stakeholders that also deal in shortages and sometimes have a lot of impact on how shortage might play out for a patient. So we looked at some root causes. 3 that we identified were a lack of incentives for manufacturers to produce less profitable drugs. And that's why we see fewer players in the marketplace. And then also a big one was that the market doesn't recognize and reward those manufacturers that do have mature quality systems. So how do we recognize them and also incentivize those that don't have them to invest in a quality system? That way that they will have that early detection system. And then sometimes there are regulatory challenges that make it difficult for the market to recover after a disruption. Length of review time, things like that. We do work hard to work on those aspects that are within the agency, but not all of them are within the agency. So a few of the enduring solutions to address shortages were these, and these are the ones that still need to be worked on, that we still need industry's help with, we need other agencies' help with, but these are some solutions we saw that could potentially help address drug shortages in the future. So we need to create that shared understanding of that impact of the shortages on patients, and then the contracting practices that could contribute to that. So how are, like I think I said earlier on, maybe a company has product, but maybe it's only going to set patients or set hospitals because those are the contracts. And maybe they don't purchase, the hospitals don't purchase from other vendors because that's outside of their contract, and maybe that costs them more. So how do we understand where that impact is and what other factors contribute to that? Then we need to develop a rating system to incentivize drug manufacturers to invest in quality management maturity for their facilities. It's important. Without these facilities being in their best possible shape, they can't make product consistently and within the GMPs for patients, to get those products out that are GMP for patients at the utmost safety and effectiveness. And then promote sustainable private sector contracts. So these are, purchasers, GPOs, and those that get probably the in-between between the manufacturers and the hospitals to make sure there's a reliable supply of medically important products. Who's there watching between the wholesalers and getting the product to the hospital groups? So these are things that are outside of FDA's hands but are integral to the drug supply chain. So that is the end of my talk. I want to stress that a lot of the information can be found about any given shortage on our homepage. Very up-to-date, daily updates to the shortage page. So you can I think add on from the shortage page to get updates directly via email from the shortage page, I think by therapeutic category, just by drugs in general. So if you don't want every product that gets posted up there, but just certain ones, you can do it that way. We also have a mobile app, which is very handy, and same thing, easier ways to search by. But always, you can always email us. So worst case, you still have a question, you see something on the page, or you don't see something on the page, but you're having trouble getting it, you can always email us, and we're very responsive. But that's the end of my talk, and we can lead into questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily, for your presentation. That was excellent and a good overview. So we do have questions coming up, and our first question is timely and asks about the pandemic. So have your office handled potential drug shortages during the pandemic differently than from your normal shortage process?
Thank you for the question. I'm happy to talk with you guys today. Truthfully, we haven't. I think the way we've heard about new shortages has come up differently since the pandemic, whether something's mentioned out in the media or somewhere else coming in, but how we actually handle the inquiries that come in, who we go to look for answers, what we do if we're looking into something that may actually be a potential shortage or shortfall in the marketplace, is how we would normally handle it. So those are the normal processes. So if there are any additional steps, we haven't had to do that as of yet, but there's definitely the normal processes. We still get the same groups of SMEs together, subject matter experts in the different pieces that play a part for dealing with the shortage, and all of that has been essentially the same.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. We have another question. So how have past imported products due to drug shortages resulted in new U.S. approvals? Were full clinical studies still needed, or were those products expedited for approval?
So in general, our imports that we have been for older sterile injectable drugs, so typically generics. So when we've had some imports that have been interested in coming in, or the manufacturers have been interested in coming into the U.S. market, they've been submitting abbreviated new drug applications, ANDAs, so full clinical studies wouldn't be required. But either way, whether you're coming in with a new application for a product, maybe it is a 505(b)(2), or an abbreviated application, if a product is in shortage or vulnerable to shortage, we'll expedite that review. So it would be a full application, but we would attempt to expedite it if we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Emily. And we have more questions coming in for you, and if anybody would like to submit questions, you can put it in the Q&A pod. So our next question is, can you please give examples of delays? Are back orders considered delays? Is there a back order exceeding a certain period of time that would not be considered a delay?
So for us, a back order may or may not be a delay. That we would get into specifics with the manufacturer. We would rather hear about it from a manufacturer that they are in a back order status that could potentially lead to a supply disruption. They only know, because I believe every manufacturer probably does it a little bit differently, but if one manufacturer may be on back order, they know that the very next week they're releasing product. It may never see a blip out in the marketplace, but maybe they know that their back order is so large, they know their next releases wouldn't cover it. You know, they know better than we do what that gap in supply could be. So for us, if they think that it might lead to a potential supply disruption, we'd like to know. That doesn't mean we're going to post something on our website. That doesn't mean we're going to go, trying to find remedies right away, but it gives us a heads up and make sure we're thinking about potential steps we could take if we need to.
Okay, great. Thank you for that answer. And we have another question about international. So what types of international stakeholders does FDA work with to help mitigate drug shortages?
Could you repeat that, Lisa? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Sure. What type of international stakeholders does FDA work with to help mitigate drug shortages?
So we work with our FDA counterparts in various countries, such as Health Canada. We work with TGA out in Australia, the EU, MHRA, various organizations, WHO. So whether we are potentially looking to import a product, or if we're just having similar issues across the board, maybe they're having problems with manufacturers on their end, they may reach out to us as well. But it's our FDA counterparts in the various countries.
Okay, great. And I think you touched on this in your presentation, but could you talk about sources of publicly available data that can help tell people about what the current drug shortages are or warn us of potential upcoming drug shortages?
So there are two places you could go. I think that would probably be of most use. But so you have our website. If there is a national shortage of a product, it will be listed on our website. I believe you have the slides available, and it's on that last page. But another good resource is ASHP's, the Society of Health System Pharmacy. Their website, they have a shortage website as well. Theirs is a little different. That is obviously needed for pharmacists and healthcare practitioners. So if they're out, say one manufacturer, maybe there are 3 manufacturers of a product, one manufacturer is out, their site will allow you to see who does have product available. So it might be more, you know, it may not be a national shortage, and that's why you don't see it on our website, but you may see it on theirs. So that's always a helpful place to go. And I think on their website, as well as linked off of our website, you can actually see what the differences are between our 2 sites if you want more information.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. And again, just a reminder, if you want to submit a question, go ahead and put it into the Q&A pod in the lower right-hand corner. And as a reminder, we were getting some questions about downloading slides, and so if you click the orange button, it'll take you to a website, and you can scroll down, look for the slides, and it'll put, they'll be in a zip file. So you just download the zip file for different days, and you can go ahead and have all of these slides for your reference and go back and check them. So we do have another question for Emily. Are there specific dosage forms that experience more drug shortages, and why?
Sorry, I didn't take myself off mute, but for certain injectable shortages seem to be the dosage form that we have the most issue with, or we see the most shortages for. That can be mainly they're harder to produce or take more time to produce. As far as we know, in terms of shortages, just talking with other manufacturers, say there is an oral product that they're making on a line, that's something that they can make more of in a relatively short amount of time, whereas a sterile injectable, and also depending on the type of filling for that sterile injectable, that can be, you know, more in terms of weeks versus days. So a lot of times you can maybe rebound or recover from an oral product shortage quicker than you could possibly from an injectable shortage. At least that's how we've seen it over the years.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have another question for you. Do you communicate with sponsors prior to publicly posting a shortage?
Yes. So we will either have the manufacturer provide us a posting. We'll reach out to them and say that we want to post a product on the website. And we will, most of the time they just provide us the posting. They're familiar with our website, and you can see what the template is and what information we're looking for, so they'll give it to us. Or if we're in a rush, sometimes it's easier for us to just fill it out, send it to them. But we will make sure that they've concurred with what we're posting on the website. We want to be as transparent as we can with the public. So if we can put more information on there, we try to, but we always vet it with the manufacturers before we post anything.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And we want to let everybody know also that just as a quick aside, that you will be getting a certificate of attendance and email after this, and that will have a link to a lot of the reference material as well for the presentation, so you can go back and take a look at all of this great information after the fact if it went too fast. So we have, I think, another question for you, Emily. When a manufacturer lists a product under drug shortages, does the Orange Book list the product under a discontinued status?
Definitely not necessarily. I'm trying to think of a rationale where we would. So on our drug shortage page, there is also a link. So you'll see current shortages. You also see discontinuation. So if we hear about a discontinuation, we post that on our website as well. But just because there is a product discontinued, it does not mean that it's necessarily in shortage. And also then, reversely, if there's a product in shortage, it does not mean that it's necessarily being discontinued. So if it is not being discontinued, you're not going to find that in the Orange Book. So those are two different, I don't know, there isn't a correlation between a shortage and a discontinuation necessarily.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Emily, for taking the time to answer so many questions and to go over these great details in your presentation. So, and with that, actually, we're going to head into our break. It's going to be for about